Hello, everybody. It is a terrible week to be a groomer, a pedo, a diddler, whatever it is you want to call these people that have been coming after our children, a mutilator. They're having an awful, awful time. They're feeling the pressure. It's coming right down from the White House. They used to feel buoyed by the White House, which supported all their efforts. Now, it's a new sheriff in town, and it shows. Hello, my name is Elena Barbera. Thanks for coming to the Based Mother Show. It is, what is it? I don't even know what day it is. Wednesday, January 29th. Every day feels like Christmas since Donald Trump took office. Every day is a new executive order. I never in my life, before I woke up, before I was paying attention to politics, if you ever told me that I would be sitting actually debating with myself over which executive order is my favorite, I would have said, yeah, okay, I have better things to do. But that's actually how I spent some time today, thinking about what's my favorite. I can't decide the border, the children. I mean, I think I'm leaning, for me, my passion is with the children and helping to save them from gender ideology and pornography in schools and indoctrination. So I'm going to go with that. But man, I love the others so much. I don't know if you have a favorite, drop it in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts. So the two executive orders that I am going to be focusing on tonight, and I'm going to try to give you just, some basic overview of them and a little more background on why they exist. Number one is protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation, which came out yesterday, and it's banning gender ideology for children. And frankly, I actually burst into tears when I found out about it, because we're actually destroying children's lives. And trans activists will tell you we are saving their lives, but there is nothing saving about cutting off perfectly healthy body parts, about sterilizing children who aren't ready to make decisions about the rest of their lives and whether or not they're going to want to have kids, whether or not they're ever going to want a family. What an 11-year-old knows that? Even an 18-year-old doesn't necessarily know that. And I just feel like as a nation, we have been so barbaric. We kill over 1 million babies in the womb every year. I mean, I don't care how you feel about abortion and choice, but you have to understand, you have to admit that we have a major moral problem in this nation when we have 1 million a year, plus then mutilating children as they're trying to grow naturally. So to me, it was really a huge victory. And I know the fight's going to continue. This is only the beginning. But to have the most powerful person on earth behind the movement is just so cool. Okay. And the second, the one that we're going to go through tonight is the one that came out just a couple of hours ago, ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schools. I mean, this is just, my mind is blowing. All right. So the first one about gender ideology. I'm just going to give you some highlights from the opening paragraph. I'm not going to read you the whole order. That would be like super boring for you. Maybe not. I mean, it wasn't boring for me. Okay. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions. They're actually working to convince children, again, that an adult has the ability to magically change your sex with medicine and surgery. I mean, it's just madness. And this is one book that you'll see me bust out a lot. It's called Trans Plus, and this is a book that's in schools all across the country. And the author of this book, is pretty public, and they have all kinds of stuff. And this is like some kind of Bible, and the chapters are things like, what is gender dysphoria, dismantling the trans narrative, social transition, medical transition, legal transition, and then relationships, and then doing it, like all the ins and outs of doing it as a trans person, because instead of just being a guy who might have been gay, now you're turning yourself into a woman and calling yourself straight because you're still attracted to men. Like, whatever. Mind-bending, the things they're doing to these kids. Back to the order. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must end. Countless children soon regret that they've been mutilated and begin to grasp the horrifying tragedy that they will never be able to conceive children of their own or nurture their child through breastfeeding. So this photo here shows a young woman who had top surgery, and you can see the scars. And this is what's going on to underage children all across the country. There's a website called stoptheharmdatabase.com where you can see which hospitals in all 50 states that have performed surgeries, sex change surgeries on children. And a lot of them are mastectomies, because a lot of this trans stuff has affected young women dramatically, because it's awkward being a teenage girl. So they want an escape, and this is their escape. So this particular picture is a nonverbal young woman with cerebral palsy, and somebody did this to her. So not only are we mutilating emotionally and intellectually vulnerable young women and men and children, we're doing this to nonverbal disabled people also. Yay, America. Thank you, Donald Trump, for stopping this. Back to the EO. Moreover, these vulnerable youths' medical bills may rise throughout their lifetimes, as they are often trapped with lifelong medical complications, a losing war with their own bodies, and tragically, sterilization. So like those top surgery where they do double mastectomies, that often gets very infected, and it just creates this like cyclical multiple surgery, being constantly medicalized, never kind of getting out of the cycle for a lot of these people. Now this is a side effect of bottom surgery. That is an arm. Keep your head clean. I only showed you the arm. What they do is they'll take a young woman's arm and they will just strip skin and muscle out of it. And then they'll take it and they'll roll it up and they'll sew it on. They'll take her urethra, and I don't know if they need an extender or what, but they put it in the middle, and then they roll the flesh around it and sew it on, like, and to make a Frankenstein fake penis. It's called a phalloplasty. But this arm, or sometimes they'll do it to a leg muscle. Now this is a whole next level of complication. And never mind the fact that you're going to have a non-functioning slab of meat hanging between your legs that will probably also be subject to infection and difficulty. And it doesn't make you a real man. But it's okay to do this to children in America, up until now anyway. Accordingly, it is the policy of the United States that it will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, and it will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures. Again, it's really happening, and this has to stop, and our federal government isn't going to chip in for it anymore, because you go to work every day and you pay taxes to the federal government, and you've been paying for the things I just showed you. You're paying for the books that go into the schools that indoctrinate the kids. You're paying the teachers in part. You're paying for the surgeries through Medicare, and up until recently through TRICARE for the military. It's mind-bending. A few highlights from this order. Ending reliance on junk science. And that is what they called it, junk science, in the order, because that is exactly what it is. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which is also known as WPATH. Wow, we're going to stop following their standards of care immediately. And they're going to be eliminated from all federal agencies. There was this expose released last year called the WPATH files, where they got transcripts and information from secret meetings that were held inside the WPATH. And that when they were having conversations on the inside about, can kids even grasp the effects of gender affirming care? One doctor said this: it is out of their developmental range to understand the extent to which some of these medical interventions are impacting them. They'll say they understand them, but then they say something else that makes you think, oh, they didn't really understand that they're going to have facial hair. And that was from a psychologist named Diane Berg, who was the co-author of the WPATH Standards of Care 8, which is referenced in the executive order because it is used throughout the government. The WPATH also informs the American Medical Association on what is appropriate and not appropriate in gender affirming care, but they never disclosed all of this. So they know that kids can't really wrap their heads around what they're getting into. which is exactly what we've been saying from the outside all along. And these doctors know that, and they're doing it and making billions of dollars anyway. Whether or not kids can understand fertility preservation, and this is in children and adolescents. This guy named Dr. Daniel Metzger, a Canadian endocrinologist, in these secret files said, it's always a good theory that you talk about fertility preservation with a 14-year-old, but I know I'm talking to a blank wall. They'd be like, ew, kids, babies, gross. He goes on, I think now that I follow a lot of kids into their mid-20s, I'm like, oh, the dog isn't doing it for you, is it? They're like, no, I just found this wonderful partner and now I want kids. So I think, it doesn't surprise me. Says most of the kids are nowhere in any kind of a brain space to really talk about fertility preservation in a serious way. So when we've been saying these kids can't make decisions about their families, the doctors have been saying, yes, they can. And the American Medical Association agrees, because the American Medical Association has gotten faulty science, or as Trump calls it, junk science, from WPATH. Is it clearing up now? Is it making sense now? We knew we were being lied to all along. And the proof is there. And now we have a president who's willing to tell the truth and shine the light on this madness. It's so freaking refreshing and relieving to know that we are going to stop traumatizing an entire generation of kids. Okay. Then medical schools and hospitals, if they get federal funding, they're going to lose it if they do have anything to do with chemical or surgical mutilation of children. Anything that, is called gender affirming care, you're going to lose your federal funding. So if you're doing research, education grants, it's over. Someplace like Boston Children's Hospital, which I did I was telling you guys about a few months ago. Boston Children's Hospital, it came to light that their gender clinic, which sees hundreds of kids every year, they have an intake session where they bring the kid in and they do a robust evaluation on the child to see if gender affirming care is right for them, if life altering sterilizing and mutilation is right for the child. Do you know how long that evaluation lasts at Boston Children's Hospital? 2 hours. They talk to a kid for 2 hours before putting him in the medical pipeline. All right. So, yeah. And they do get some federal funding for research and education grants. So what are you going to do, Boston Children's Hospital? What are you going to do? All these hospitals and gender clinics that have popped up all over the country and are raking in billions of dollars on the twisted little tortured, brainwashed kids and their sick parents. So Medicare, no more, not paying for this crap anymore. TRICARE, which is the military's health insurance, not paying for it anymore. Any other federal health plans, done. Nobody's paying for your kids to get sterilized and mutilated anymore out of federal tax dollars. Your dollars are no longer going to be going into this. I mean, if that's not a reason to celebrate, I don't know what is. I mean, it's super exciting. One of my favorite things is that kids and families, he wants to create a very strong legal pathway for them to sue sanctuary states for gender affirming care. So what am I talking about? Minnesota, remember the guy who was almost vice president? Well, not almost, because they got beat in a landslide, but he was on the ticket. Tim Walz, in his state, there's basically what I would call state-sanctioned kidnapping, where if a child in any other state, or even in his own state, wants to get gender affirming care, and the parents are like, nah, you know what? Why don't you just grow up and be you, and we'll see about this in a few years, which is anything any normal parent would say. The state will take the child, completely take custody of the child, and provide chemical and surgical castration and mutilation to the child against the parents' will. Yes. And the parents will have, according to this law, have zero rights over that child, because by protecting the child and wanting them to grow up in a normal, healthy body naturally, that parent is labeled abusive and the child can be taken. Can you even imagine? So Trump is like, yeah, so any families that happened to, you're going to be able to sue the pants off the states and the hospitals and everybody that did that to you and your child and destroyed your family. Pretty psyched. Pretty psyched. Okay. Then there's the second one, ending radical indoctrination in K to 12 schools. This executive order opens parents trust America's schools to provide their children with a rigorous education and to instill a patriotic admiration for our incredible nation and the values for which we stand. So education and patriotism and parents trust. I used to believe that that was what was happening. I used to believe that when I dropped my kid off at public school when he was younger, that that's what he was getting, a rigorous education and being taught to love his country. That is not happening anymore. I wouldn't say if my son walked in and he was like, "Hey, I got a kid," I'd be like, and I'm taking him to public school. I'd be like, "Nope, forget it. We will private school, or I will personally homeschool this child. There is no way we are sending him to a public school." And I live in Florida, where things are, at least patriotic, and they protect them from this sexual indoctrination up to the third grade, which is nowhere near enough. So for parents to continue to trust this system is something that really bothers me. And that's something I spent a lot of time on, trying to hit people over the head with the frying pan of truth of what's really going on in our schools and telling them, please get your kids out of here at all costs. Whatever you have to do, whatever living arrangements you need to change, whatever things, sacrifices you need to make, financial or otherwise, do it. Because they're indoctrinating your kid, and you sitting at the kitchen table over dinner for 5 minutes in between school and a sport isn't going to undo 8 hours of indoctrination. Now, if he changes the schools the way he's going to, this is going to change, and we are going to be able to trust them again. But I wouldn't get too excited about that, and I wouldn't jump too fast on that, because this is going to face a lot of legal battles, because the people who want to groom your kids and teach them to hate each other and hate America are extremely committed to their mission. In recent years, however, parents have witnessed schools indoctrinate their children in radical anti-American ideologies while deliberately blocking parental oversight, right? Kicking parents out of schools. And part of the deliberate blocking of parental oversight started in the 70s, and we didn't realize it. So when they started busing kids, they said it was for, racial equality and all that. BS. It was a trick. It was never about racial equality. It was about getting parents out of the schools, because when you take your kid on this side of town and you put them way on this side of town on a bus, the mom isn't just popping into the school at lunch. She's not able to walk the kid into the classroom, pick them up every day, get to know the teacher, see what's hanging on the billboards. It's different. You don't have parents in the schools. It gave them the freedom to become the creepers that they are in our schools. That was the real purpose of busing. Try to convince me otherwise, because we've seen that in other ways. The real purpose of BLM was to be able to discriminate against white people and, get whitey back for things that they never did or somebody else did 150 years ago. It's just whatever, just divide us and, just make us hate America, and then just make us think oh yeah, no, legal invasion is fine because America stinks anyway. So they tried so hard, all these psyops. And when you look back on history, like me, now I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't what they said it was either. At least in modern American history, it's all BS. It's all BS to control us. Anyway, such an environment operates as an echo chamber in which students are forced to accept these ideologies without question or critical examination. In many cases, innocent children are compelled to adopt identities as either victims or oppressors solely based on their skin color and other immutable characteristics. Yes, so this is what they do. They teach Black kids that they're victims. They teach Spanish kids that they're victims. Now, when I was growing, and they teach white kids that they are oppressors and they should feel guilty for being white. Up until this CRT indoctrination, critical race theory, started, we were taught to judge people by the content of their character. We were taught that we had unifying factors. We are all Americans. We all have opportunities in this country. We can all climb as high as we want or fall as low as we allow ourselves to. What was wrong with that? It's hard to control people when they're successful, when they're strong, when their minds are healthy. It's very hard to control people when they have emotional intelligence. So this annoying story happened. My son was in like the 5th or 6th grade. I think it was 6th grade, and he came home and he had gotten into a scuffle with another kid at school, and the teacher called me. And in the schoolyard, he told, it wasn't even like a fist fight. It was like words. And my son didn't pick this one kid to be on his team for something. And I happen to know my son doesn't like this kid because he's the kid. My son, in my son's estimation, was that the kid was kind of obnoxious. The teacher called me and they said, so and so said that Sonny didn't pick him because he's black and Sonny is a racist. And I was like, damn well that is not true. And that is absurd. So I didn't see the big picture when that happened, but there was already this conversation happening that these little kids were being taught that, the white man was out to get them, and they're being oppressed. Like, because you don't get picked for something, it must be your skin color. Nothing to do with your shitty personality. Right? And I didn't see it at the time. And it was like kind of like after the movie Avatar had come out, like a few years later. And I remember people like whispering, I guess that's really about white supremacy. And like, oh, shut up. Shut up. You ruined this country with your nonsense. We're taking it back. And we're doing it, but we're starting in the schools. In other instances, young men and women are made to question whether they were born in the wrong body. It's not just young men and women, it's pre-K. This is a book called Bye Bye Binary. It's a board book. You see these hard pages? It's a board book about smashing gender norms. That's what it says in there. That's for toddlers. Then we've got the pronoun book. How do you know what someone wants to be called? Are you kidding me? Do I need this? We've got the she's. It's not a she. He. I don't know what that is. They. That's not a they. That's one person. That's one person with a beard. So that is one man. That's a he. But they're putting this in front of children. And I mean, there are so many books like this. These aren't the only ones. And there are schools where they're hanging these flags and they're putting these pronoun posters up and really just making this normal for kids. Because even when you abuse a child, after a while, they just think it's normal. A kid that grows up in an abusive household just assumes that unless they really get to see other things, they just think everybody lives like this. This is just normal. And so that's what they know, that if you immerse a child in something enough, they will think it's normal. And that's what they are doing in schools and libraries. And Donald Trump, thank God, wants to get rid of it. Oh, and teaching them whether to view their parents and their reality as enemies to be blamed. So what they're doing with really little kids is, you were assigned a sex at birth, but your parents may have gotten your gender wrong. That's the first brick in the wall that they put between a child and their parents, because the government wants to run your kid's life. They want to own your kid. They want to be the kid's education center, indoctrination center, medical center, food supplier, everything. It's a push towards socialism. And the only way you can really do that is to destroy the family. So you sterilize a bunch of people and make them think it's normal. You teach them that their families are bad and they don't understand them and they can just choose their family. Whoever your friends are, that's your real family. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's enough. That's enough of that. Oh, God. My administration will enforce the law to ensure that recipients of federal funds providing K-12 education comply with all applicable laws, prohibiting discrimination in various contexts and protecting parental rights. So parental rights are going to mean you're going to be able to be back in that school and asking questions and getting information, and not going to be shown the door every time you ask a question. This is interesting. Within 90 days of this executive order of today, the Secretary of Education, Secretary of the DoD, Department of Defense, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services have to get the president a plan for a bunch of different things. Why the Department of Defense? Because the Department of Defense has its own education system for military children from K to 12. So they operate 160 schools in 8 districts, 7 states, 11 countries, Guam, and Puerto Rico. The DoD schools are also indoctrinating children with CRT and gender bending and sexual grooming. It's really happening. I'm actually going to get into DoD schools in more detail coming soon, but it's mind-blowing what your federal defense budget has been paying for. And I think most people, when we think about schools, we don't necessarily think about Department of Defense schools. But they've been destroying our military's children. We're going to eliminate, so those secretaries have to have a plan for eliminating federal funding for indoctrination programs in all of their K-12 schools and in teacher education and training. So that means everything that happens in schools to educate teachers on their new curriculums, any training, any policies, all of it. There will be no more CRT and no more sexual and gender indoctrination. So these teachers are going to, I don't know how he's going to be able to affect colleges. I hope that this can take us to, he'll do another order that affects at least public colleges, because what's happening is the teachers are indoctrinated in college and they come out like wackadoos who just want to like be social activists, and they don't want to teach the kids how to read and write and do math. They want to teach the kids how to like have feelings that match their own feelings. It's real. It's real. So even if they come out of college like that, we're gonna just train that out of them. And if they want to keep going with it, they're gonna be shown the door. Get out. Get out. Get out, psycho. Like, you want to keep teaching children this in my daddy's belly? That's a pregnant lady dressed as a man who takes shitloads of dangerous hormones that are dangerous to herself. And we don't have enough data yet to know how dangerous this is for these babies. And then next 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to see babies that were born of mothers who took all these male hormones, and we're going to see how twisted their bodies and their minds are, because in utero, they were being poisoned in an unnatural state. Like, we deserve God's wrath so bad, so bad. Like, I can't even believe he gave us another chance by bringing Donald Trump in to help save this. They're going to do more to protect parental rights, and they're going to go after teachers who sexually exploit minors, who unlawfully practice medicine by offering diagnoses and treatment without the requisite license, who otherwise unlawfully facilitating the social transition of a minor student. So if you're just trying to convince a child that they should just, start dressing different, and we'll call you he, her, and I'll change your name from Timmy to Tammy, or whatever you want me to do. Yeah, we can do that. And we don't have to tell your parents. Yeah, laws are going into place to prosecute you. And this is really fun. So he's going to reestablish the President's Advisory 1776 Commission and promote patriotic education. So during his first term, Trump created this commission, the 1776 Commission, to try to reinvigorate patriotism in America. Then he got hit with COVID, so it just never really was able to get legs. Then Biden came in and he killed it. Why would you go out of your way to write an executive order on the first day of your presidency? That's when Biden did it, to kill an effort that would improve love of country. Doesn't matter. So we're going to turn every kid in America into Donald Trump here, hugging the flag. That is the goal, to bring unity, to have one thing for all of our natural diversity that we have in this country, have one flag that we all love, and we look at each other and we say, we're all Americans. That's what we're going to do. The purpose of the commission is to promote patriotic education and promote the work, this is going to be so fun, of the White House Task Force on celebrating America's 250th birthday, which is next year, July 4th, 2026. We're going to have this massive national celebration for our 250th anniversary. Woke teachers are going to love this. And Trump is putting in all these initiatives in schools. And he wants them all implemented in K to 12 schools that receive federal funding around the country so that they are all involved from K through 12. Every kid is involved in some level in celebrating America's birthday with essays, with special projects. Probably little kids will be doing some coloring, whatever it is. There's going to be all of this I love America stuff going on. And oh my God, it makes me want to go back to school. It makes me want to go back to school. I can't wait to see what they do. And I can't wait to see what kind of a celebration we're going to have on July 4th, 2026, celebrate our 250th when we have a president who actually loves us. If if Harris had won, that 250th anniversary would have been like, our history, our country has a history of a darkness and oppression and division, but there is a future. And and she would just sit and harp on everything that ever went wrong. There would be nothing positive. There would be nothing patriotic, nothing to bring us together and look forward to the future. And we have that now. And I'm so happy. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for tonight. Do me a favor. If you like this, drop a sub, hit like, leave a comment, and come back again. I'm here. I'm going to be here moving forward Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. Here on my Rumble channel. And then I'll post it afterwards everywhere else. Anyway, I hope to see you soon. God bless you and God bless America. Bye, guys.